Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining the session today about deploying water accounting tools for climate financing and innovation scaling by the Water and Energy for Food program. I'm your moderator today. My name is Anthony Shadid. I'm the country coordinator for Lebanon for the Water and Energy for Food Middle East and North Africa Hub. A few housekeeping rules. The attendees that are online can submit your questions throughout the discussion on the chat, and we will include them in the Q&As. You can use the links shared in the chat to access the tools that are being shown. And if you have any issues, please feel free to contact Ms. Katie, who is also the online moderator. So our agenda for today, we're going to introduce Water and Energy for Food, which is a program that's been deployed in 5 regional innovation hubs. We're going to have a quick Mentimeter to see what the audience's understanding of water accounting is and the availability of water. Then we are going to define water accounting, showcase the different tools that have been developed, and have a quick panel discussion about the usage of these tools. So first, we're going to watch this video to introduce the Water and Energy for Food program.
Snorris face very more challenges like multiple symptoms. Increase the rate and increase the point productivity. Innovation arms main activities are identifying innovators, technical assistance in general business skills, marketing, and investment readiness, bringing together innovators, financiers, and investors, engaging with policymakers to advocate for improved enabling environments that allow innovations to grow and prosper, and providing trainings to local actors, such as stakeholder farmers, supporting practitioners, and also institutions. All these activities primarily sourcing innovations that save water and energy and water usage, and help them to produce more food, which increases their income. To learn more about water and energy for food, visit our website, follow us on social media, and subscribe to our newsletter.
Excuse us if there was any sound quality issues. To reiterate a bit the video, so Water and Energy for Food is a grand challenge that was deployed in 2020. It's in 5 different areas in South and Central Africa, East Africa, West Africa, the Middle East and North Africa region, as well as South and Southeast Asia. We support medium and small-sized companies that have innovation within the food value chain that allows them to reduce the consumption of water and energy within the value chain. We help them through providing cash grants, technical assistance, investment readiness support, and enabling environment activities. A big thank you to all the parties that have been involved in all regional hubs and the 6 donors, which are USAID, the European Union, SIDA, NORAD, GIZ, and the Kingdom of Netherlands. So we can move on through the Mentimeter which will allow us to have an idea of what the audience thinks of water accounting. So if we can all pull out our phones and scan the QR code on the screen. So what is your knowledge and level of water accounting? And what are your thoughts? So I see that for our level on water accounting, there's some beginners, some intermediate. So it's good we have some things to learn together today. And we have an expert in the crowd also. It will be interesting to get the feedback as well. Next question. What are your thoughts on water availability around the world? It's a big topic. So we can see some answers coming in, lacking, scarcity, conflicts that might arise from water, variable, inconsistent, um, unevenly distributed, crisis, scarcity again, depleting. So we can see that the audience has a quite negative image on the water availability around the world, and we'll try to clarify this a bit through the tools that we've created. Okay, so to define water accounting per the FAO, it's the study of the current status and trends in water supply, water demand, accessibility, and the use of water. It provides the foundation of sound water management decisions. The methodology that was used by the two companies that we worked with to create the dashboards, which are the International Water Management Institute and the BRLI, the tools were designed using the Water Accounting Plus methodology. It's applied to river basins, and it uses open access remote sensing data sets. So these companies were able to retrieve available data through either remote sensing or available data through local authorities to then create a model. This model takes into consideration aspects like rainfall, snow, the inflow of water into the river basin, and then they're able to calculate the evapotranspiration of the water and the use of it for agricultural purposes or other purposes along the food value chain, but also for other things like hydroelectric power, for example, as well as storage. And they also calculate the outflow of the water from the river basin. And from there, they're able to develop a dashboard that shows us these different metrics per area, per sub-basin, to really understand how much water is available and how much water is usable in these areas. And we will see these tools together in a few moments. So why did Water and Energy for Food decide to build these dashboards and these tools? So our midterm evaluation showed that certain technologies that we have been that are being invested in have the potential to overuse water in some focus regions, and that's goes against what we're trying to do. We are trying to support the sustainable usage of water, not the overuse of water. And a solution that we found feasible was to create these tools for water monitoring to build a more sustainable framework for scaling these innovations in places that really need sustainable usage of water. So we've used these tools in many instances already. So our team has been trained on the usage of these tools in the different areas, and we'll be speaking about that later today. We educated the innovators about the tools. So the innovators being the companies that we are supporting, they were able to receive training on these tools and understand how they can use it. And we are highlighting the current water availability and future trends through these tools and able to analyze that internally as well. A few things to keep in mind that what we've built is an analysis of the available public open source data. And it's currently a bit limited information. More in-depth analysis is needed for policy level tools. The tools that we ORF have developed provide a simple assessment for entrepreneurs, for financiers to have a quick, accessible way to help tailor their offerings. And we'll also see that with our panelists later today. So to highlight the MENA tool, I have Dr. Ahmad Hussein, the Technical Assistant Specialist for the We4F Middle East and North Africa Hub. Hello, Doctor.
Hello, Anthony, and pleasure to be with you. Okay, so I'll just give you a quick view of snippets from the tool so you get to feel how it can contribute to decision making. Overall, the ultimate objective of that tool is to be able to provide companies with insights into a specific geographical area in specific river basins. We're just using here the River Nile as a demonstration case where they can know how much sustainable amount of water can be used under various scenarios. So the idea is that you will be able to click on the map, see in a specific area how much water is available for irrigation, and under multiple scenarios, you can see how much more water can be available for irrigation in a sustainable manner. Normally, when you choose a river basin, you get an overview of the map. Down to the left corner, you get an idea about the water coming into the system, the evaporation, and the water balance in general. Typically, you see, for instance, that this is the amount available for that part of the system, which is 49 billion cubic meter of water for sustainable irrigation, as well as the specific amount of area that can be sustainably irrigated. Next slide. Then you are able to dig deeper. The second layer is that under multiple scenarios, I think in the slide is not very clear, but you can choose multiple scenarios where water efficiency increases by different amounts based on possible technologies to deploy. So for instance, the 9.3 billion cubic meter is under a specific scenario where water efficiency improves in a certain way in that river basin, in that case, the River Nile, you can have that much available water for extra irrigation. You can choose the scenarios and see which conditions would avail which amount of water for further expansion of agriculture activities in a sustainable. Next slide. Okay, so this is, for instance, for the river, and for each river, you will be able to see the water balance of that river as a collective. So in that case, for the River Nile, it's the inflow through Lake Nasser, and then the precipitation, which is rain, which is in that case quite limited, minus the evapotranspiration. And that shows you over multiple years how much water is coming to that basin. Next slide. You can even go into the map and look at a specific area. So for instance, this is a layer showing you the rainfall in multiple areas, and you will see the amounts are quite small, or the ranges are quite small, because this is quite an arid region. The interesting part is that you can go into the map and click into any specific point, and then you would be able to zoom in and see how much rain is coming to that area. Next slide. Same, you will be able to look at the evapotranspiration in multiple parts of the map or the river basin. It can show you the amount, which is basically going out every year. You can zoom in where you are operating as a company or a startup and know the conditions for that part of the basin, which usually referred to as watershed. Next. Now, the interesting part is that you can, next. Okay, so here the interesting part is that, let's say you are a company operating into, if you look at the picture down to the right, into sector 12, which looks like a blue, dark blue area of the river, and then you are working in the area next to it, which is marked 13. You will be able to know that that specific area with the darker blue has more water available for operations. So that can, for example, tells you which areas in the country you are operating where there is less water available. And then if you are selling a water efficient solution, for example, it's more likely that operating in that area can provide, let's say, better on-the-ground solution to the people or the farmers in that specific area. Of course, you can click any part in the watershed and you'll get the amounts and the degrees of water and the available amount of water for sustainable farming every year. Next. Okay, this is, for instance, you can get a report for a specific area in the watershed and check different scenarios for deployment of energy efficient technologies. For instance, I've picked here an area, specific area, and I chose a certain scenario where efficient and smart irrigation is deployed heavily. And you can see that that specific area, you can avail about 129 hectares extra for sustainable irrigation. You can play with these scenarios in different parts of the system. Just to summarize, this is just like, let's say, a demo for the River Nile. Of course, in certain areas, these tools can give you different type of rivers, also different areas that are not having, like, operating under use of underground water. In short, this can allow you to check any part of the area you are operating, see how much water is sustainable for, is available for sustainable agriculture, and under multiple scenarios, you can see how much more water can be available. As an entrepreneur, this can help you direct your marketing activities, your business solutions, and know where your clients are more sustainable and where they are less sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hussein, for your inputs. So if there are any questions, please don't forget you can add them through the chat box if you're on Zoom. Doctor, I have one quick question. Having worked with many entrepreneurs and businesses in the sector, do you believe that there are specific companies in specific sectors that can benefit from this tool?
Yes, I particularly think I think there are two type families of companies. One family is companies which are serving solutions that can decrease water consumption and increase productivity. So let's say drip irrigation, sprinklers, smart and digital irrigation, for instance, compost, where it is known that it can decrease amount of evaporation and increase water retention. So this type of companies can benefit a lot from knowing which areas, for instance, suffer from more water loss or areas that have abundance. I think areas where there is more water stress, more evapotranspiration, less inflow, then farmers in that area are more likely to be seeking these solutions. The other type of companies are companies that can unintentionally trigger more water use, such as solar irrigation companies. I think it's important for them to know if they are really working in an area where there is not enough more water for sustainable irrigation. I think they need to be aware of that, and they need to know that that in these areas their client is at more risk of having problems in farming, because if you sell a solar pump in an area where there is not enough water use in a sustainable manner, and the farmer, because of the solar pump, starts to use water more to farm, let's say 2 seasons, for instance, instead of one, then that farmer is likely to face water problems. So I think it's very useful for both type of companies.
Excellent. Thank you, Doctor, for your input. Always so insightful.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So next we will be going through the South and Southeast Asia tool with Mr. Bijay Thapa, who is the Environmental Sustainability Advisor at the South and Southeast Asia Hub. Hello, Bijay. Bijay, you might be on mute. We are unable to hear you.
Hi, I think
Yes.
I have been, I'm not the co-host right now, so I'm not being able to share my screen as well as I'm not being able to open the video. I think it's.
We can see you, we can hear you. Let's try to get to your screen also. There we go, we
Yeah.
can see your screen as well.
Okay, so I'll just briefly go through what we have come up as one of the output of this assignment. So we have this dashboard. The link is shared with you in the chat box, and we have three components here. So if you click the story map, then it gives you the summary of that particular river basin. It's the basic information here, and then what are the challenges that has been faced. These are derived based on the literature review of the previous studies, and also based on the observation and the discussion that we had when we were developing this dashboard. And then we have the information on the climatic conditions like the precipitation, evapotranspiration. So it's basically the the description of the result that has been shown in the dashboard. And yeah. So after that, I would take you to the dashboard. So it's quite similar to SCA's dashboard. We have slightly changed that. It's not that different. So if you are used to that particular dashboard, then you will be, I mean, it's very easy to use the dashboard that has been designed for the South Asia and Southeast Asia. So quite similar to what Dr. Previous speaker showed. So we have the information here. It's the utilizable water that is available here. And if there is any confusion, we have the glossary here. So everything that has been, every term that has been described here are mentioned here. And in case of the Ganges River, so one of the findings that was discovered was the groundwater depletion. So we highlighted this one. So it's different for different river basins. So we are trying to make the visual impression that what exactly the situation right now. And this is particularly for the baseline. So it's for 2010 to 2009. So every point that you click, you get these options. So I'll start with the main board here. So we have categorized the river basin into different sub basins. So if you click any sub basin, you will get the information popped up here, which is not working. I don't know why, but it was working a few minutes back. And same applies to the precipitation, evapotranspiration, land use data. And then here we have the amount of utilizable water. We have categorized that into wet season and dry season. So the yearly utilizable water is the accumulation or the summation of wet season and dry season. So based on this information, the innovators or the user of the dashboard can exactly know what will be the tentative water that will be available for utilization. And the information provided here is the hectare of uh, area that can be irrigated, or this much of land can be uh, irrigated more than at the present scenario. So this is for 300 per hectare, which might increase. So let's say for maybe rice, it might come around 1100, 1300 So in that case, we can increase this much of area as, or we can convert the land use to agricultural area, this much of land. And yeah. So also on the utilizable water. So if you keep on changing these things, the values also changes. And this is for the base year. So it's still, it's based on 2010 to 2009 data. You click this one, and then we get the data for 2025. Similarly, if you click 2030, it will give you the information, the projection for the year 2030. And this will give you the situation that will, the projected situation in 2035. So and lastly, we have also included the methodology, how we come up with that dashboard. And every the basis of the calculation, the basis of the modeling has been included here. And the reason for including this one is if any of the user want to use the information for academic purpose or for publication, then you can include, you can refer the methodology here that has been adopted. And if yeah, I mean, uh, you can slightly modify the methodology also. And yeah, and when I talk about the development stage, so it took us about 7-8 months, I think. And it has been a lot of discussions. We agreed to one point this week, and then we disagreed next week. So the product is not just the output based on the individual experts' opinion, but it's more like based on the discussion that we had. One of the challenges that we faced was the data availability. We could not get the ground data, so we referred the previous studies conducted on these river basins, the Red River and the Ganges. And for validation also, we had to refer the other studies. Yeah, I
Mm.
think, yeah. And yeah, on the applicability of the dashboard, it's because it's as Anthony already mentioned, it's dependent on the secondary data or the satellite data. So the information provided by the dashboard is not it's accurate, but it's not in the scale that the innovators want that to be, like not in the range of millimeters, centimeters. It will be in the range of meters, or yeah, most likely meters. So it can be applied by the innovators who want to expand their business, or they can predict that after this much of years the water won't be there. And yeah, and
Mm.
last, yeah, please.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Thank you, Vijay. So that answers a question that's in the chat box actually about the type of data that was collected to be able to build this dashboard. That's exactly it. So these kinds of tools are just for innovators and financiers to be able to make more educated decisions on where they can expand and what kind of opportunities or threats are within these areas, and not at a policy level. The data was collected through available sources, open sources, through authorities on the ground, and as well through remote sensing technologies. I hope that answers the question. Thank you very much for asking it. BJ, would you like to add one more thing before we move on to the South and Central Africa hub?
uh, no, but I will be here, so if there is anything, then I will definitely come in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure building these dashboards together. Next on the agenda, we'll be going through the South and Central Africa tool. We will have Manuel Magombeo and Taryn Bigwood, Taryn being the technical assistance facilitator for the Southern and Central Africa hub, and Manuel being the water agriculture expert for the same. So, Manuel, Taryn, if you could please unmute so that we can.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manuel. I'm going to take you through the demonstration of the dashboard that was developed for the Southern Africa, which is based on the Zambezi Basin, which is one of the longest river in Southern Africa and fourth in Africa. Yes, next slide. As we have had in the first opening slide, that the water accounting tool is just akin to your housing accounting or country accounting, because it weighs on what is coming in and what is coming out. And this dashboard was developed using the Tableau technology, which is also open source, and it can be updated anytime as need arises. Next slide. Just to take you through the dashboard, we have got some buttons on your left-hand side that when you click them, they will land you to different pages or aspects of the dashboard. The first one gives you the basin overview, and this basin overview, it just gives you a summary of the basin statistics at a high level. Then we have got the innovators, the second button on your left-hand side. This gives you the key information about innovators found in the basin. And importantly, it also shows the type of technology that these innovators are implementing in the basin. The water balance page as well gives you the water balance components, and the water balance, like I explained earlier, it shows you what is the balance between what is coming in the catchment, what is utilized, and what is going out. Then we have the water availability and the water. This is the water that is available for use in the basin. Then we have got some water indicators on the second button, on the indicators button. And this gives you also the baseline water availability indicators in the basin at an annual time scale. Then we have got the climate page. This sort of gives you the projections of water availability and changes into the future. And for this dashboard, we consider the 2030 and 2040, whilst our baseline was based on 2003 to 2022. So on this page, you can see at your bottom right-hand corner, we also have a manual that can assist you to go through the different steps in this tool. Next slide. And the next slide, this is just to give you an overview of those buttons, those pages that I explained in the previous slide. So on the first one, we have got the basin overview, and on the overview, you have got the short description about the basin, or the area of the basin, which countries are involved, and which economic activities are involved. And in our case, we have got agriculture, domestic fisheries, mining, tourism, manufacturing, hydropower. And important is the environmental consideration that we need to look at to ensure that all the technologies that we implement are sustainable. Then we have there's a donut on your top right-hand corner. It's showing you the different land use, which shows you the managed water use, unutilized land use, protected area about the basin. And in the middle of the slide, you also see the basin area, the basin population, the per capita water availability, which is about 10,600. And we have got the environmental water stress. What percentage of time is the basin unable to meet the environmental requirements? Then we have got the water availability. When you look close on the basin overview, we have disaggregated sub-basins that you can click. For example, you've got the annual rainfall. You can click on each sub-basin and get more information about the basin or water availability, sub-basin or water availability about that area. Next slide. And the next slide gives you when you want to play around with the tool. Let's say you are based in Zambia, it enables you to choose the different countries that are within this basin and get information about that country. And you can also disaggregate further down to the sub-basin within that country to get the different parameters of this water accounting, which is your water availability, your outflow, and what is the change in storage. This gives an idea on how we can plan, considering the competing uses that I've mentioned in this basin. Next slide. Then we go on to the water availability page. Like I said, this gives an overview at basin, but you can also go down. It has been disaggregated to sub-basins. For example, I've chosen the water availability in the basin. Then it gives you the ET, it gives you the rainfall, it gives you the other parameters there. Then when you click on each of the sub-basins, it will then give you information on the next part of the slide. It gives you the information about that area. And for example, in this slide, it's showing Zimbabwe, where is the province, Mashonaland West, and where is the district is the Hurungwe. So it gives you more information about that area and also gives you the water balance parameters that are shown on the left-hand side. Next slide. In all this analysis, it is also important to see how do we prepare in terms of the climate projections, or how do we adapt, how do we ensure we use water efficiently and in the basin. So on that slide, it gives you rainfall. I've chosen rainfall. There are different parameters as well that you can choose on the drop-down menu, where we have got the baseline, like I indicated earlier, is from 2003 to 2022. And it shows you the water available, the rainfall that's as the baseline. Then for 2030, it's showing you we have got 79% of the baseline rainfall. And at 2040, we have got 68%. So this is showing generally that there is going to be a decrease in rainfall in this basin. And moving on, just choosing any other parameter, I've chosen the water availability. You can see on the second slide that there is decrease of 54% in 2030 and 42% in 2040. So you can play around and see how do we plan moving forward in terms of achieving sustainable development. Next slide. How do we put the innovators? The innovators slide, it shows you on the first slide, it shows you where the innovators are in the basin and what type of innovation. We have got biogas digester, we've got solar pumping companies, we've got cold room storage companies that are doing that. So in each area of business, you are able to click your area of interest and see where these companies or customers are located, and then you check what is the water availability in those areas. On the other second part of the slide, it's showing you, for example, I've chosen water availability in terms of irrigation and from solar pumping companies. You can see the red, the pink color. It is showing you areas where the amount of crop water requirements are not met, and the yellow part gives you an area where we have got the conjunctive use of your surface and groundwater being implemented to meet the crop water requirements. So that's and very interesting part that we see in this dashboard too, because it will enable the innovators to see where they are likely to cause high negative environmental impacts vis-a-vis where there is a high potential to grow. Yes. Next slide. So what are the challenges? I think my colleagues have highlighted some of the challenges that were related to data. I think I will just skip those ones. And the other challenge was that the unavailability of observed or insight or on-site observed data that we normally use to sort of train the models so that they are able to show us something closer to what will happen. Then we have got the perceived uncertainties in terms of remote sensing because of the different aspects that affect the remote sensing, some instances of cloud and all the noises that can happen in those type of data. Then we have the specific technical skills that are required to process or pre-process the remote sense data is required, and also the interpretation. There is also inadequate capacity in terms of human resources and for implementation of remote sensing and water accounting methodologies. There is also the lack of institutional capacity and a clear roadmap of embedding this water accounting into existing institutions. For example, in our case, I think the institution that has been welcoming this is the Zambezi Zambezi River Basin Authority. Right, next slide. I'll just give you some takeaway messages in terms of this exercise, that there is need to be close attention to data quality that is input into these models so that we have got something that is useful for planning. There is need for collaboration in terms of development. Different stakeholders need to come into play, for example, agriculture, environment, hydropower, and industry, mining. They need to be involved. We also need an increase in technical guidance and awareness and understanding of this accounting tool. I'm happy that some of you that joined are beginning to have an interest in this water accounting tool and see how it can help to ensure sustainable development. As I conclude, we noted in this basin that the water supply that is coming from the 5 sources is actually declining over time, and this is something that is worrying and very useful information for planning future interventions in the basin. And lastly is that this tool, it provides an integrated information that can support governance and management, just like your economic accounts can do in the accounts world. I think with that, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Manuel, for the great presentation, and we are looking forward to using this tool more and more. So moving on to the panel of that we have today. So we have Bess, the Regional Innovation Hub Manager for South and Southeast Asia Hub. We have Tina Al-Bustani, who is the Deputy Hub Manager for the Middle East and North Africa Hub. Taryn Bigwood, Technical Assistance Facilitator for Southern and Central Africa Hub. And Sasmita Patnaik from the South and Southeast Asia Hub. Thank you all for being with us today. I know that we've all been part of creating these tools and testing them. So I'd like to start with the first question towards Bess and to Tina. What are the important considerations that others should keep in mind? So while using the tool or analyzing the tool or even developing a similar tool. Bess, to you.
Right, sure. I think I'll take the first cut for the development and utilization of the tool. So I think the very first lesson learned for us is that as much as we want to develop a very standardized template or dashboard, what we found during the development and testing process is that there are many datas and priorities which are different from one basin to another basin. So for example, in Ganges Basin in South Asia, the dashboard may need to show the water availability in each sub-region because water availability has been one of the key challenges there. So this information can help the innovator to make a better decision when they want to expand to each of the sub-regions. But at the same time, the water availability might not be as crucial for the Red River basins in Southeast Asia in our case, because water is available everywhere, at least in the basin that we study. So that even when we include this, it might not help the innovator or policymaker to make a much better decision. So we may want to replace it with another indicators in the dashboard that can help them making a better decision at the end. So basically, in summary, the very first lesson learned and things to consider if you were to develop the tools or utilizing a tool is that it should be designed and tailored to each of the basins. So the information that need to be included in the dashboard would be crucial and usable to make a better or worse decision for the users. So I think that is the first one. In terms of the second one would be on data availability. That's one of the key issue in our region as well, that a lot of data might not be available and or might not be updated frequently. I think one of the questions in the chat box is about secondary data and primary data. That is true, at least for our region, that we don't have a lot of primary data and secondary data that we have. A lot of time it's not from each specific country as well. So I think if in the future someone want to consider developing the second phase of these two, or even us updating these two, once we have more data, I think that would be one thing we want to do better or improve in the future. Last but not least, I think the last part for me is about utilization of the tool. While we develop this tool for the innovator or startups in our cohort, I would say that it can be useful for other partners as well. For example, the government officials or the ministries can use this tool when they start designing the policy or the schemes to improve the sustainable use of water as well. So I think that would be my last point, that as much as we want our innovator to use, we would love to have the similar tool, or we open this tool for any other partner to use this tool to make a better decision to support the water utilization in this region as well. So yeah, I'll pause here in case there is anything. Please let me know.
Clear. Thank you, Bess, for your input. Tina, are you there?
Yes, and hello everyone. So I have little to add to what Bess has said. It was we eventually also encountered the same challenges in the development phase, and the fact that, of course, one set of indicators may not be the relevant for all types of basins. For instance, for the Litani, the dry versus wet season was a very important add-on to have, versus the Nile, which did not have really a wet versus dry season, but yeah. So, but had the big reservoir that is Lake Nasser, that is a big regulator of the flow coming in from the transboundary inflow. So this is one. The availability of data, of course, which is a very sensitive thing, sometimes considered as sensitive by governments or not available as a. And the ability to model and make assumptions. I think each service provider had to make assumptions, and we always need to keep these in mind. So that these are being built on assumptions. These are, let's say, with a certain level of accuracy, but this is only giving, let's say, preliminary values, very estimates that could help us, that would need to be much more refined if we want to go more granular. But these are really, I mean, estimates based on very broad assumptions most of the time. And the second thing, when you're using the dashboard, okay, we've computed the available water and the utilizable water. So utilizable water, again, is precipitation or inflow from transboundary inflows, minus evapotranspiration that is not related directly to human work, and minus any runoff that should go to the sea. And then we have utilizable water, available water. And then we take out all the water that is really needed for the man usage, whether irrigation or urban or anything else. And then you have the utilizable water, what is still remaining for potential incremental agriculture or something else. Now, this means that the full water is, I mean, we haven't accounted for the pollution of the water because let's say in Litani and in Nile, we have a big issue of pollution. So when we talk about utilizable water, it doesn't mean that it's all very clear and sound. That's one thing. The other thing is that, it is, you have to differentiate, of course, between basins and keep in mind the specificities of each basin and understand the assumption we've made in the climate change and in the governmental actions for the forecasted period. In the climate change, we took the most how do you say that, the worst case scenario, and when it comes to government actions, or increase in irrigation going forward, we have also in the story map, we have clarified the assumptions of what type of incremental irrigation we have accounted for and where, in which basins, in the computation of the utilizable water after this increase going forward.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Tina. So we just have a few minutes left. I would like to ask the final question to the panel. So there has been trainings for innovators, and I'm sure we've gotten takeaways from these, and we'd like to see also what are the kind of benefits that such tools can be used for benefiting these innovators in their business planning and mitigation and risks. So I'd like to ask Taryn, Sasmita, for your answers. Taryn first, and Sasmita, and if we still have time, we can move on for one last question. Taryn?
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. So I really feel that specifically looking at the Zambezi Basin where we worked, that this tool was quite highly effective in terms of mapping what the current status of the water resource was. Obviously, there are complications in terms of the data, but if you look at the big picture, you can really see, what the current status is and the optimal areas where there is abstraction going on in the basin and where there's water availability. And the tool showed some really good information in terms of, for our innovators to use it and say, okay, these are areas where maybe we should reduce the use of irrigation, and these are the areas where we still have a higher availability. So when they plan their businesses, they can move around and develop more in the areas where there's more availability. Climate change is affecting Africa quite significantly, and we can really see on the tool, if we look at the length of time that we've looked at, the rainfall data and the utilization data, that there's a definite decline in terms of water resources within the valley. And then the last thing is really, if you look at it from a financier perspective, and I think this tool can really be used for the financiers to inform them of what water infrastructure they can finance. They don't want to finance something that is going to risk our water resources. So this could actually be a good tool for them too. So yes, that's basically my take home on all of this. Thank you.
Great point. Thank you. Sasmita, within a minute, please.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. There were, obviously the innovators were excited about the training, but I think there are 3 or 4 areas where we as hubs have now got to do the work. One is they were very interested in understanding what are the sources of this data, what is the frequency of update, how real time can this be, and then the specific use cases of this data, like how can they apply this dashboard and this information to run their own businesses, to kind of scale and expand their businesses. And the final one is outside of the business, how can this contextualize and shape the discussions on some of the larger conversations, such as water credits, which is something the innovators are looking at. How can this dashboard help them decide how to maximize and optimize some of those opportunities that are placed before them? So yeah, I'll pause here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sasmita. Thank you for all the efforts that have been done at all levels. With that, I would like to wrap up the session by thanking everyone for attending. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for the input from all the team members within the panel and during the presentations of the dashboards. The links are up on the we4f.org website for you to check and to use. If you're interested in learning more, please feel free to contact the We4F team through info@we4f.org, and you can also follow us on social media and the email. Thank you and have a nice day. Thank you for the World Water Week for having us.